It was in this era too that we would hear a lot from Vince McMahon. He was making appearances like on TSN's Off the Record with Michael Landsberg. He's going to have a series of conversations here, and they're going to cover a lot of different topics. And these were not softball questions. I mean, TSN and Off the Record was really known for some of the harder hitting questions in wrestling. And they're going to take him to task about Bret Hart and about Owen Hart and a variety of things. Was there a planning process for appearances like this where we know that a lot of people are going to see this? It's going to go, for lack of a better word at the time, viral. It's going to get a lot of coverage. Everything he says is going to be dissected and all that. Do you think there's any sort of planning process like, okay, what will you say if he says this? What will you say if he says that? Like the sort of prep you would do before you go to court? Or is that not the case?
I think McDivitt was involved in a lot of that, Connie, as far as the role playing and the preparation, and he did. And Jerry always did a great job. You know, I was shocked recently to find out that that he was, I don't know how to say it, that he was no longer with the company because allegedly he lost a lawsuit. I guess with that MLW deal or something. I'm not sure. I didn't keep up with it. I'm not sure what all happened. It didn't pique my interest. I'm out of that loop, so I didn't waste my time on investing time and energy to something I had nothing to do with or not. So, but I think McDivitt had a hand in preparing Vince, much like he did for the trial. And McDivitt was a valuable asset. That's why I say I was so shocked that someone told me that McDivitt no longer works with the WWE.
Yep. He's retired. McDivitt's completely retired.
I know. And knowing Cherry as I do, I just never thought he would step out of the game, no matter what. But, you know, he's in his 70s. He's made a lot of money, so he didn't have any financial needs, as best I know. You know, I talk to Jerry still about once or twice a year, and it's just basically social calls. You know, Jerry's a Pittsburgh guy, and he was close to my family, and of course, Jan being from Pittsburgh, that was another caveat. So he and I have always had a close relationship in that respect. I can guarantee you, when I testified, I was extremely prepared, thanks to Jerry McDivitt.
One of the questions that Landsberg asked Vince is the question that a lot of us probably would have asked. With the benefit of hindsight, would you have made the same decision of continuing the show after Owen Hart's accident? And McMahon didn't answer the question, but he said that no disrespect was meant to anyone in continuing the show. And Landsberg said that many people, including the family, considered it disrespectful, and that if he himself had a member of his family that had died under those same circumstances, he would have considered it terribly disrespectful. Did you ever have that conversation with Vince? With the benefit of hindsight, does he regret continuing the show?
I don't think he had any regrets. He did what he thought was right, whether it was or it wasn't. Somebody had to make the decision, and he was sitting in that chair, the emperor's chair, and so I don't think he had any reservations at all. He may have privately, I don't know, but we never discussed it, and we discussed a lot of things over the years. That was not one of them.
One of the things that Landsberg follows up about on the whole Owen topic is, hey, you didn't announce to the live crowd in the building what had happened to Owen that night in Kansas City. And Vince said something along the lines of, I don't know if it's fair for the people to hear the announcement. They'd find out for sure later. And he even said that it didn't seem fair to announce it at the conclusion of the show. Listen, I don't think there's any right answer at that point. He made
there isn't a right answer, Connie. There's not a hard and true right answer to this conundrum, without question. And I think Vince simply did what he felt like in his gut was the right thing to do. And based on what we know about the whole scenario, how it eventually would play out, I don't know if there is a right answer. How do you? I just don't know. I don't know if there's a right answer. And we all, when he was the boss, he was the sergeant, he was the general, he was the emperor, he was everything. You just try to support that mindset, and that's what I did. I followed his lead, and it was uncomfortable at times, no doubt. But I don't know that there is a right answer to that whole situation. It was just terrible what occurred and what happened, and we had no precedent to go back and say, well, the last time this happened, we did this. There was no last time. It was the first time. It was the only time. So there's nothing, no precedent to go back and draw from. And when you don't have that, and you're just starting with a clean slate, it's easy to make a mistake or be misjudged in this case, on how things went, how it should have gone, and what is the right answer. I don't know what the right answer is, and I was as close as anybody in the company to that whole scenario. And I perceived, and I might be wrong. This may be an egocentric answer, but I understood what was going on, and I also tried to think through it, and I never had the ability to come to a conclusion. Well, this is obvious. This is what we should do, and it was a controversial topic, to say the least, and that might be an understatement.
The thing I want to mention too is it's not like there was a precedent set where Vince knew, like, hey, when this happens, we do this. There's no policies in place. There's no procedures in place. This is never something like this has never happened before. So I think a lot of us listening now, we would say, oh, well, I would have stopped the show. And I'd like to think now that I would have stopped the show. I'm saying in that very moment, what do you do? It's a split second decision. You got to make that call and you got to live with it. He's bared the brunt of that the entire time. I do think I would have liked to have think that I would have stopped the show and announced that we've stopped the show and issue refunds and all that jazz. But in that very moment, you got to make a split decision call. You don't really have all the information, and it's just kind of there. I think we all agree it's just as regrettable as it possibly can be. One of the biggest, maybe the biggest tragedy in the history of professional wrestling.
Oh, I agree with that. And again, no right answer.
Right.
Pardon me. The fact that there was no precedent, there's no, boy, the last time this happened, here's what we did.
Right.
There's nothing to draw from.
That's
starting from scratch with a clean slate, and it got dirty much sooner than I wish it had. It was hard to. I've addressed that question, and golly, I don't know, dozens of times.
Sure.
And I still don't have the answer. And I don't think I'm a dumb guy.
Well, but we're also able to be honest and say, boy, if that was my son, if that was my dad, boy, I'd want him to shut the show down. But in that specific moment, man, like, and I know Heavy is the head, and Vince had to make the decision, and it's his call and all that. I got to think with the benefit of hindsight, I think I would have, if I was Vince, I would regret continuing the show. But I know that you've got to deal with the hand that you were dealt in real time, immediate.
It's like being an umpire.
Yes. Yes.
It's like balls and strikes, outs and safes, that type thing. It's you got to make a decision, not tomorrow, now, and he did that. I don't know how much guidance he got from his crew in the back, but I know how I was communicated with. And I was told this story about, Kevin Dunn coming in my headset and saying, we're going to make an announcement about Owen. Kevin Dunn thought that I knew what the update was already. I didn't. So it kind of fallen through the cracks as far as, well, we need to tell the announcement. We need to tell JR and the King what's going on. And somebody thought somebody else did it, and it didn't happen. So then all of a sudden I got about 15, 20 seconds to come up with something. And we got through it the best we could, but hell, we had no time, no prep time to figure out the wording and the right answers or speak very deliberately or whatever. I mean, I just used common sense. But it was hard, man. It was a hard call that where there's no right or wrong scenario, in my opinion. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I think in hindsight, you can certainly make a case for the right thing to do was to stop the show,
Yes.
but that's not what happened.
Well, and to use your balls and strikes analogy, the issue there, the only difference there is at the very moment that the accident happened, we didn't know the result immediately. Like,
Right.
I mean, I was still optimistic as it was happening that I mean, I walk around my life optimistic. Oh, he'll be okay. They'll fix it. He'll be fine. This
Yeah.
can't happen because it's almost one of those this can't happen to me type things. And so it's like, well, this won't really happen at a wrestling show. There's no way that could possibly be real.
Yeah.
But damn it, it was. And
Very real.
very real. Super
Very
sad
real.
situation. Less than ideal. The rest of this conversation with Michael Landsberg is talking about things like, hey, hypothetically, could you see yourself working again with Hulk Hogan? And Vince McMahon's quote, never say never.
Right.
Never say never in pro wrestling. Might be a theme today here on the show.